Twins at birth, Emil and Bernhard were born in 1870. Their father was a dye master, but had run into financial difficulties, and soon after the boys were born, their mother passed away, and they were left in the care of the grandmother. But when she passed, just as the boys, who were both showing signs of drawing skills very early, were separated at the tender age of 11. This was a hardship for both the boys to be parted. As it was, they grew up very protected and somewhat isolated in the small town. Bernhard was sent to live with the grandmother's sister, who was married to a master tailor, where he would become an apprentice. Emil continued with another relative, where not much more is recorded, but he continued his venture into drawing and painting with the thought of pursuing his passion as a full-fledged painter. On Bernhard's part, he was also to be an assistant to a photographer at 14 years old, which he later used to do copies for those wanting a portrait painting, which led to other contacts that greatly helped him save money to further his studies. For the Österman brothers, it seemed destined that they followed their career choices. Emil had already chosen to begin serious study at the academy in Stockholm at around 18 years old, and 2 years later Bernhard followed him for study at the same academy as well. So, by 20, they were both on their way to their dreams, and the two decided to rent a place together during this period. Emil decided to travel by 1892 to gain further opportunities abroad, and Bernhard, on his part, received a travelling scholarship, where his visits took him to Germany, Holland, and Paris. So now let's look at the artists on their own terms, and how each fared, and the work accomplished. Carl Emil Österman became a Swedish painter, illustrator, and academician. From 1890 to 93, he studied at the Royal Swedish Academy of Fine Arts, and was awarded the Royal Medal for his depiction of the murder of Axel von Fersen. It was the fate of Count Axel von Fersen, who was devoted to Marie Antoinette, and tried to help the French royal family escape in the ill-fated flight to Varennes in 1791. He was very popular with the ladies of the court. Emil quickly was recognized for his talents with such pictures. While at the academy, he also took lessons in etching from Axel Thalberg. Then, from 1894 to 98, thanks to several scholarships, he was enabled to visit Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Germany, and Spain. He became a member of the academy in 1900 and later taught education there. According to people who met Emil Österman, he was a social, humorous, and good-natured person who was easy to collaborate with. He was commissioned to be an exhibition curator for the Swedish Gallery at several international exhibitions, for example, 3 times in Munich, Vienna, and Brighton. In 1903, he married a German lady, Emily Brock, and had a son, Carl Gustaf, with whom several paintings were made. A long series of portraits can be found in Eskilstuna of the beautiful wife. Emil, like his twin brother Bernhard, was in demand and appreciated as a highly skilled portrait painter by the turn of the 20th century. The boys grew up in poor conditions, but thanks to talent, diligence, and perseverance, they skillfully managed to rise to a position as highly respected artists. However, they never forgot their origins, yet their early entrepreneurship was shaping up. In early 1888, Emil went to Stockholm and was employed by decorative painter Carl Grabo, but in the winter the work was at a standstill, so Emil then advertised in a newspaper that he was drawing portraits from photographs. His ploy worked out with orders coming in. One day he went up to the royal palace and wanted to meet Crown Prince Gustaf to offer him a drawing of the prince's 2 eldest sons. Emil cleverly had drawn a picture of the little princes for the newspaper. About a week later, Emil was called up to the Crown Prince, who saw his talent and promised to support Emil with 300 kroner a year for further study at the Art Academy, and this contact proved to be his first big leap into a professional association lasting for years. One of the notable portraits by Emil was of the Swedish-born chemist and industrialist Alfred Nobel, who was born in 1833 until 1896. His family was suppliers of military equipment, but when the war ended, they went into bankruptcy, and he drifted from Paris to the US. Then returning to Sweden, he was to experiment with the use of black powder for the mines, when he found adding other elements to the compound improved the blasting explosives, all of which led to great wealth. His other talents were cultural, as he wrote poetry, plays, and novels. The painting by Emil is superlative in drawing and composition, and furthered his own reputation. Before we turn to the other twin, we have this look at the dramatic portrait of Sven Hedin by Carl Emil Österman of 1923, with carefully designed and well-modelled features. Now let's look at the works of Bernhard and his equally prodigious productions. Each brother had the opportunity to paint both King Oscar and the royal family, a privilege that lasted for many years. Bernhard was Gustav's favourite painter. He was popular with the Swedish royal house and had a court appointment. He did portraits of many of the royals and other Swedish dignitaries. His favourite model was his wife, Emily. They had no children, but enjoyed many years together and had a lavish home and studio. In the portrait featured of the writer Albert Mirah, there is the story by Bernhard about its creation. I may mention that I, for some reason, never asked to paint anyone. Well, I take that back, because on one occasion I actually asked a man to paint him. Those who have visited my exhibition may have noticed a painting showing the well-known French poet. How I came to paint him is a separate story. One evening, many years ago, I sat in a café in Paris and drank for the first and last time in my life a glass of that treacherous liquor called absinthe. Suddenly I saw a man enter. He was very badly dressed, indeed almost downright shabby, but when he took off his hat, I saw one of the noblest heads I had ever seen, and I thought to myself, how I should not like to paint that head. However, I am to my nature quite shy, and I was actually not brave enough to approach him and ask. But after a sip of the absinthe, I felt braver and gathered myself to approach him. Then I noticed a small red ribbon in his buttonhole, the Legion of Honour. Courage failed me, and I sat down again, completely absorbed in admiring his beautiful head. While I was looking at him, I took another sip of absinthe, and then I suddenly felt so full of courage that I simply walked up to him and handed him my card and told him that I was a young man who painted portraits and that I would very much like to paint him. He was extremely amiable, and I soon realized what a remarkable man he really was. The result of it all was the canvas you can see at my exhibition. Bernhard painted between 400 and 500 different portraits during his active life. In 1912, after Bernhard married Hilda Wessén from Sundsvall, they settled in Stockholm around 1915. He was then one of Sweden's most sought-after and well-known portrait artists. By 1919, Bernhard was appointed court inspector and reached the peak of his career when he was appointed chief inspector in 1933. The couple lived at a home that has been described as one of Stockholm's most beautiful. Bernhard was capable as well with solid picture-making, and we have here one of his finest, The Rendezvous or Temptation, a depiction of a masquerade party where two are involved in intimate conversation of sorts. The painting is wonderful in its arresting deep tones and rich colouring in costume. Both are well drawn, and the feeling of a real conversation is completely natural. At an exhibition in St. Louis in the USA, both he and his brother Emil received a gold medal, and Carl Larsson received a silver medal. Bernhard spent time abroad, and between the years 1906 to 1914 he lived in Paris as an internationally recognized portrait artist. He also lived for long periods in Berlin, and his powers in portrait painting never waned. Both brothers were capable of the highest standards in their profession, and each attained a lifestyle that brought them the respect and admiration they fought hard to attain. As we leave this presentation of two remarkable painters who are also brothers, we take a closer look at the masterpiece of portrait composition by Emil, depicting a painter with a palette in hand. A stunning picture that encompasses the breadth and liveliness that typifies the studio painter in deep thought for the next stroke of the brush. And then there is the painting by Bernhard of a young man who also happens to be in his own world of thought, by a desk with books and papers at the ready. The colour arrangement is very rich, and the triangular movement of the head and hands well balanced. These two artists were a wonderful discovery for our look into fine painting. They are portrait painters who serve their country well, with artworks that the art-loving public and artists alike can enjoy. They fought the odds and made a great success of their talents. We hope you enjoyed the works by the Österman brothers, and we look forward to bringing many more well-deserving artists to the forefront. So, until next time, with appreciation to our subscribers, and do remember to leave a like, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.